simp, not a simp. A simp, not a simp. A simp, not a simp. We eat so many shrimp. I got iodine partners.
My bitch a choosy lover, never fuck without a rubber. Never in the sheets like it on top of the cover. Money on the dresser, drive a compressor. Top notch hoes get the most, not the lesser. Trash like the fuck for $40 in the club. Fucking up the game, bitch, it gets no love. She be cross country, giving all that she got. 1,000 a pop, I'm pulling business off the lot. I smashed up the gray one, bought me a red. Every time we hit the parking lot, we turn head. Some hoes wanna choose, but them bitches too scary. Your bitch chose me, you ain't a pimp, you a fairy.
A simp, not a simp. A simp, not a simp. A simp, not a simp. We eat so many shrimp. I got iodine partners.
Baby, you been rolling solo, time to get down with the team. The grass is greener on that other side. If you know what I mean, I show you shit you never seen. The 7 wonders of the world. And I can make you the 8th if you wanna be my girl. I say my girl, I don't mean my woman, that ain't my style. Need a real street stalker, walk a green mile. Piling up the paper on the dining room table, cause you able to realize I'm the truth and not a fable. Baby, rockin' Russian sable, keep that chiller on the rack. What I look like with some $1,000 shit up on my back. I'm $1 million man, they need $1 billion bitch. Put my pimpin' in your life, watch your daddy get rich. Easy as ABC, simple as 1, 2, 3. Get down with UGK, Pimp CBU with B. Cause what's a hoe with no pimp, and what's a pimp with no hoe? Don't be a lame, you know the game and how it goes. We try to get chose.
A simp, not a simp. A simp, not a simp. A simp, not a simp. We eat so many shrimp. I got iodine partners.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It is Artie of Artie's Corporate Fiction. Sorry for the brief delay. I only just got home a few minutes ago, so I didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare. But we have a bit of a somber live stream today. Yesterday, one of you guys had sent me the feed that the news story that a group of alleged sovereign citizens had ambushed and killed 2 Australian police constables and a neighbor who was just happened to be in the area, was standing by. And I think it's something important for us to talk about and remind us about. But I'll go to the the story that was sent to me.
Step by step, police officers trace the final movements of their fallen colleagues, reenacting a cold-blooded ambush that ended in the deaths of innocent neighbour Alan Dare and 2 young police officers, Constable Rachel McCrow and Constable Matthew Arnold. Their families today offered some comfort.
It is important that I see the families. It's important that I tell them how proud we are of their children.
Survivors of the shootout, Constable Randall Kirk and partner Keely Bruff, now both out of hospital and no doubt processing the ferocious firefight. The evidence of just how ferocious it was, clear and confronting. Rapid gunfire, a sound neighbour Michelle will never forget.
I heard 2 very distinct shots and then 4 shots in quick succession after that. The silence made the sound travel. So, yeah, they were very clear.
Riddled with bullet holes, the armoured police Bearcat, now removed from the remote property, which was reportedly fortified with foxholes, surveillance cameras, barricades, guns, and off the grid with solar energy. Nathaniel, Gareth and Stacey Train called themselves sovereign citizens, paranoid and obsessed with extreme conspiracy theories, including anti-vax beliefs, and cut off from their own family.
I'm not responsible for my 2 boys. They severed their relationship with us 23 years ago.
Their relationship with authorities is less clear-cut, But 4 Queensland officers were sent to respond to a missing persons report requested by New South Wales Police.
Those officers were responding to a routine job. They were ambushed and they were executed, and that will be investigated.
The investigation here in Queensland is now focused on how and why police were led to such a well-planned ambush. And was that missing person report in New South Wales part of an elaborate ruse designed to lead them 40 kilometres away to the remote property? The trains were all once employed by Education Queensland. Nathaniel had taught disadvantaged children in Cairns and in Walgett, New South Wales, where he was adored.
It is just so hard to comprehend that it's the same person we're talking about.
I certainly remember around 10 years ago sitting across the desk from Nathaniel Train as a school principal. It's very difficult for me and so many people to reconcile that person with the person who was part of this horrific act.
Stacey was a respected school principal, but on Monday night she was shot dead alongside her husband and lover, his brother.
Can't give any excuse or any reasons to why this has occurred.
Their twisted ideas leading to 6 deaths, families and a country left in mourning. Of course, the ripple of this goes right through the police force, not only in Queensland, but really right around the world. And for the local officers here at the Chinchilla Police Station, they're trying their best just to get on with their job, to be professional, to carry out their duties as they think of their fallen mates and those who survived. They approach each routine job, I guess you have to understand, with that little bit of extra fear tonight.
So, ultimately, my understanding what happened here is the police officers responded to a missing persons. It was either a missing persons call or a welfare check of some kind, and by all accounts, they were ambushed from the get-go. There was I remember reading, and I'll show you some of the articles that I've been reading. But it's not good.
Good evening. A police officer who survived the ambush and shootout that claimed the lives of 2 of his colleagues has spoken from his hospital bed, saying he's feeling okay following surgery to remove shrapnel from his leg. Later tonight, the Opera House will be lit up in blue to honour the 2 young constables who were killed when the police officers were ambushed on a remote Queensland property.
Constable Randall Kirk does have a reason to smile. He is alive, but he has a lot to process. His boss visited today in hospital.
He's obviously giving thought to what has occurred. Very grateful to be here. Gave him and his wife a big hug and told him that I'm grateful that he's with us.
I'm feeling fine, just a little sore, he says. My main thoughts are with the other police families at this awful time. It means a lot to know the community cares for us all. At the remote property where Constable Kirk was shot in the leg, where his partner Keely Bruff survived, but Constables Rachel McCrow and Matthew Arnold did not, police remain wary. Officers who exchanged gunfire with Nathaniel, Gareth and Stacey Train were walked through their version of events, but only after a search for potential booby traps laid by a family of survivalists making their last stand.
I heard 2 very distinct shots, which I believe to be shotguns, and then 4 shots in quick succession after that.
The armoured police Bearcat was removed, riddled with bullet holes. The train's property was fortified with foxholes, surveillance cameras, barricades, guns and off the grid with solar energy. Conspiracy theorist Gareth Train once wrote on an anti-establishment website, "I have directed law enforcement to leave my premises over the last 20 years, having no reason or grounds, and at times have also asked them to remove their hands from their weapons or pull their pistols and whistle Dixie."
Jesus.
Such an attitude may be the reason why 4 police officers were needed for a routine New South Wales missing persons report.
Was Nathaniel Train on any sort of watch list here in New South Wales?
The only thing I can clarify is that this is an investigation being led by Queensland Police into the murder of their officers and other people, and we will support them in that investigation.
Walgett is where Nathaniel Train had taught disadvantaged children. He was loved by many.
It is just so hard to comprehend that it's the same person we're talking about.
It used to be fun, and we used to decorate his beard with Christmas decorations.
Popular too in Cairns.
I can't understand. Never will.
The former principal had sent a series of bitter complaints to the New South Wales Education Department.
None of those claims were substantiated by the Department of Education executive.
Although now is not considered the right time, 7 News understands the police officers will all be nominated for Bravery Awards. And tonight we can reveal more details about the extraordinary heroism shown by the team's rookie. Keely Bruff graduated in October. As she hid in scrub, her colleagues dead and flames around her to flush her out.
So yeah, based on the reports, the two officers who were shot and injured, according to an eyewitness, were then taken out execution style by the group. The male who was hospitalized that we saw earlier, he was able to escape. The other female officer hid in brush, and they torched the brush to try and smoke her out, to take her out. And then the neighbor just happened to go up to the property to see what was going on, because he heard all the commotion, and they apparently shot him in the back.
The young constable kept feeding intel and kept her body camera recording. It emits a constant beep and could have given away her position. She kept it rolling regardless to document what she feared could be her own death.
Her courage was pure instinct and is not something that can be taught.
Keely heard the crack of a high-powered rifle that shot neighbour Alan Dare in the back. The 58-year-old had rushed there to help.
If there was a police officer, it doesn't matter if they were dead or alive, he would have risked his own life to go and make sure he got him out of there. He'd help anyone and everyone.
It was his final act of selflessness and bravery.
Let's go live now to Robert Ovadia, who's on the scene. Rob, more details are now emerging about Stacey Train, the woman who lived on that property.
Yeah, hi Mark. For a couple of days now we've heard about Nathaniel, the former school principal, Gareth, the conspiracy theorist, and now details emerge about Stacey, a respected educator also here in the Queensland education system with a passion for teaching and a passion for kids. Never really let her controversial views be known, but she did have them, those conspiratorial views shared by her husband Gareth. She certainly did make those views known when she resigned her position here over COVID vaccinations. She subsequently fell off the grid as well. And from police sources here on the ground, I can tell you she was not a passive participant in the shootout a couple of days ago. She was shooting at police and yelling at them right to the very end, Mark.
Robert Ovadia, thank you.
No, they were killed. Australia, like a special unit of Australia's police, ended up taking them out in a firefight. Like several hours later. Yes, DA, Australian, unlike UK police, Australian police are armed.
Well, Queensland is still in shock this morning after the horrific shooting that killed 2 young police officers, a local man and the 3 perpetrators. The shooters and the victims of the attack at Willingboro were known in nearby communities, and locals are struggling to understand what has happened.
A long and complex investigation has begun that will try to unravel how and why former school principal Nathaniel Train, his brother Gareth and Gareth's partner Stacey came to ambush police police as they arrive for a routine missing persons check. Constables Matthew Arnold and Rachel McCrow were killed in a hail of bullets, while neighbour Alan Dare was shot in the back as he went to help. Our reporter Jemima Bird is in Chinchilla in Queensland and Hannah Joes is in Walgett in northern New South Wales. First to you, Jemima. 2 days on, what is the feeling there on the Western Downs?
Well, Lisa, shock of the initial tragedy has turned to disbelief 2 days on. We know behind me there's dozens of floral tributes that have been laid by people in the communities, and as you mentioned in the introduction, these are people that were known to the community. And for scale, Chinchilla is about 300 kilometres west of Brisbane, has about 6,000 residents. Tara's not far away and has about 2,000 residents. So these communities are really small, and these are communities that know their police officers and are just deeply shocked and devastated. And we know that this tragedy has sent shockwaves around the country and around the world, and multiple investigations are now underway by Queensland Police with assistance from the New South Wales Police, Ethical Standards and other as well. But they're all trying to figure out how and why school teachers and a school principal came to become execution-style murderers. We've seen photos of Nathaniel Train as a principal in Cairns with children, and Stacey Train worked at the Tara State School as recently as December last year. Katarina Carroll spoke briefly to the ABC a minute ago, and she said that she's already spoken to the 2 surviving officers and is expected to meet with the families of the slain officers today. She told 7:30 last night that investigators are set to consider every avenue of the investigation, including whether the attack was premeditated, and it'll also consider the perpetrator's online behaviour in recent weeks, months and years. She said the 4 officers had conducted a risk assessment, and the officer in charge was aware that they were heading into what should have been a routine job, a missing persons check. Here's what she told 7:30 last night.
I know that the officer in charge also spoke to them, so they were quite comfortable about going out to the property, and in fact, from what I understand, quite jovial and, you know, having fun with each other. For us, this was a standard job.
Let's go to Hannah. What's the community's reaction been to the news in Walgett there?
Yeah, well, I'm in Walgett, which is a small town in the northwest of New South Wales, just across the road from Walgett Community College Primary School, where Nathaniel Tran was principal for about 18 months before abruptly leaving last year. Now, the community, as you might expect, is still quite shell-shocked. It is a town of just over 2,000 people, so emotions are still quite raw. This is a man who was largely well regarded as a principal. So for people to see this man they knew and interacted with involved in such a tragedy has been a great blow. One resident here expressed his disbelief about the situation by saying that this kind of thing, a deadly shootout with police in a seemingly unprovoked attack, would be something he would have expected to hear from somewhere in the United States, not in rural Australia. Now, as with any principal, there are parents here who still hold grievances against him for the way they say he treated their children. There are also parents who think that he was genuinely trying to improve educational outcomes at this school. But across the board, no matter what the opinion of Nathaniel Train was as a principal, there is a huge amount of shock and disbelief at this tragic and horrific set of circumstances here.
All of it will go into what will end up being a very long investigation. Jemima and Hannah, thank you.
I'm trying to get through some of these other articles and for any new information. Yeah, thank you, John, for that. I mean, I've been dealing with sovereign citizens for a while now. I'm well aware of just virtually all of those incidences that you listed. The Bundy Ranch situation, the New Orleans shooting, the Las Vegas couple that was plotting to kidnap, imprison, and try and execute Nevada state troopers or Nevada police. You know, the infamous Tennessee shooting of a sheriff's deputy, or it was either a police officer or a sheriff's deputy. I mean, this is just the reminder that as much as we laugh, as much as we make fun whenever these guys do their stupid script in court and on a traffic stop, there are a number of them that are absolute true believers and are willing to go the distance for their ideology.
In my opinion, those officers did not stand a chance. The fact that 2 got out alive is a miracle.
It was supposed to be a routine door knock. 4 young police officers called to a remote...
And what's the standard thing we always hear? Routine welfare check. Standard missing persons report. It's always these kinds of things that you hear officers get killed the most.
Remote property 3 hours west of Brisbane in search of a missing Dubbo school principal. We now know they were walking into an ambush.
As soon as they'd entered the property, they were just inundated with gunfire. They had no idea that they were walking into what would be the end of their lives.
29-year-old Constable Rachel McCrow and 26-year-old Constable Matthew Arnold gunned down execution style.
When their 2 colleagues who have passed away were on the ground, they were then executed in cold blood by these people who showed no compassion in any way, shape or form.
Incredibly, the 2 other officers narrowly escaped, the heavily armed shooters lighting a fire to try to smoke out a young female cop who'd been on the force just 8 weeks.
She did not know whether she was going to be shot or she was going to be burnt alive. I do know she was sending messages to loved ones saying she almost was at a point where she thought it was her time.
A 58-year-old neighbour, Alan Dare, who came to investigate the fire, was fatally shot in the back before reinforcements arrived. 16 officers risking their lives to retrieve the bodies.
You have to get in there, and they did that extraordinarily well, knowing that they were going to be under fire.
6 hours after the ambush began, it ended in a gunfight.
The matter was unable to be resolved peacefully, and all 3 offenders were fatally shot by specialist officers.
The offenders? Missing man Nathaniel Train, his brother Gareth Train, who owned the property, and Gareth's wife Stacey. Their motive is unclear, but Gareth was reportedly deeply involved with an online conspiracy community posting about his mistrust of police and alternative theories about the port.
If you're a conservative, anti-vax, freedom lover, protester, common law, conspiracy talker, alternative news, independent rethinker, Christian patriot, expect a visit from these hammers. Martin was a perfect capacity. The Australian government is guilty of mass murder. It's not the first time. It won't be the last. Joint Operation CIA, MI6, Mossad, ASIO. I have no idea who that is.
Port Arthur massacre.
An Australian SASR. I assume SASR might be Australia's FBI. I have no idea. Port Arthur, the infamous massacre, 1996. That ultimately resulted in Australia having extremely strict gun laws. Port Arthur was a false flag operation to disarm the Australian population.
Rule out whether one of the offenders had called the police to come to that property?
No, we can't rule anything out at the moment.
Investigations continuing as the nation reels.
It is an extremely emotional and challenging time for the Queensland Police Service.
Jazz was like 35 or 36 people.
Matthew and Rachel, they pay the ultimate sacrifice by simply doing their job.
Those officers will never, ever be forgotten. Ever. Their sacrifice will always be remembered.
Thanks, Cliff.
With honour they served.
Ian Levers from the Queensland Police Union joins us now. Ian, first off, condolences to you, to your team, to all of your colleagues. This is a truly horrible incident. Does anything prepare you for this?
No, it doesn't. This is just one of those tragedies which was unforeseen, which should never, ever happen. And my colleagues here in Tara and Chinchilla are doing it really tough, and the ripple effect right around Queensland is hurting everyone, and it's spread right across Australia and New Zealand. But this was just a routine investigation that the police were conducting. There was no intelligence to suggest that they may be at harm, and tragically 2 lives of Matt and Rachel have been lost, and we are just so lucky that we did not lose Randall and Keely as well, and their efforts were truly heroic in what they did in being able to ensure that other police were able to respond and do what they did. There was nothing to prevent these ruthless, murderous trio who were nothing but pure evil. When the neighbour went to investigate, he was ruthlessly shot in the back and died. That is just absolutely disgraceful that 3 innocent people have been murdered.
Ian, how are the families of the fallen officers holding up?
They're doing it really tough. I reached out to Rachel's mum and I'm yet to hear back, and I can only just imagine or trying to understand what she may be going through. I spoke with Matt's father last night, Terry. He's doing it really tough. He's in a state of disbelief that he's lost his son, who's only 26 years of age, who wanted a promising career in policing, as did Rachel, and they're going to live with this for the rest of their lives. And coming into the festive season, when families come together and they celebrate, this will be the darkest Christmas for Rachel's and Matt's family that they've ever had, and this will continue. But one thing at the police union we will ensure: their memories will live on. We will honour them and never forget them, because they paid the ultimate sacrifice because of the acts of some very evil, disturbed people.
Ian, there are reports that the offenders were wound up in conspiracy theories. What more do you know about that?
Look, we don't have that information at this point in time, because from what I'm advised, this was a normal investigation in relation to inquiry for a missing person on behalf of New South Wales Police. And their risk assessment that they conducted, I would have done exactly the same, and I have over 30 years in policing. And although Rachel and Matt, they had just under 2 years policing experience,
Likewise,
I would
Jesse.
have done the same. It is just a tragedy, and this was certainly unforeseen, and they never could have predicted that what was about to take place. And when they entered into that yard, that would be the last moments of their life. But not only when they were shot, they were then cold-blooded, murdered and executed by these people.
It's a dark day in so many ways, of course, for the force, for the families of those who died, Ian. We appreciate you taking time out on a day like this to speak to us. Thanks so much.
Thank you, and thank you so much for your support and for the community across Australia. And what I've seen here in Chinchilla and Tara, the emotion and the public support is just unbelievable, and that keeps us going. And even knowing that the flower shops have sold out of flowers and the pain within the community, they're sharing it with police, and we can work together. So thank you.
We hope that provides some comfort, Ian. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Police Commissioner Katarina Carroll joins us now. Commissioner, it's so hard to know what to say. What a confronting day for you. How are you, and how's the rest of the police force holding up?
I think we're all travelling not too well at all. It's been a tragic day, a day of mourning across the QPS, the state and the country. I went in and...
What you're asked to do at the best of times, let alone on a day like this, just seems so unfathomable to all of us. Those phone calls with the families of the fallen officers, how are they doing?
They're not doing well. They're not doing well. Their colleagues aren't doing well. We're all in tears. We're all upset. In many ways, I think even angry, because it's hard to understand. You know, a call where you're protecting the community, it's very hard to fathom, to make sense of what's occurred. And that's, you know, we have the investigation now that started. We will get to the bottom of this. It seems callous, it seems senseless. It is one of the most tragic days in policing history.
Commissioner, you walked through the crime scene today. That must have been terribly confronting.
Yeah, I had to do that. I had to see what happened.
So what I'm trying to find, if not, I'll just relay the article I'm reading.
The conspiracy theorists behind this week's fatal shootout in Western Queensland had prepared themselves for an ambush by rigging their property. A web of CCTV cameras and possible kill zones had been erected on the property in what police say was a premeditated ambush. Tree trunks and scraps of steel were used as obstacles to lure people down those...
Jesus Christ. Okay, yeah. Yeah, never read the comments under Sky News.
So-called kill zone pathways. And more details are also coming to light on Stacey Train and her involvement in Monday's shootout. It's believed she'd resigned from her teaching job due to a vaccine mandate deadline last December. It's also alleged, according to the Courier Mail, that she ran from her home with a firearm before being shot by heavily armed specialist officers.
Yeah, well, the viewership is anyway. So I'm looking here. So one of the things I'm looking here, that's a very weird twist. So the two individuals, the two males and one female who were killed, who were the perpetrators. The two males were brothers, Nathaniel and Gareth, and the other one was Stacey. Apparently, Stacey was originally married to Nathaniel, but then apparently started shacking up with the brother, and they all lived together. So that's the thing, apparently. Yeah. I'm reading here, Nathaniel and Gareth Train and Gareth's wife, Stacey, who was previously married to Nathaniel, ambushed constables Matthew Arnold and Rachel McCrow on a Monday, shooting the pair dead execution style.
Hello, we begin with the cold-blooded execution of two young police officers at a property in rural Queensland. Suspects have been shot dead in a bloody gunfight near Chinchilla, west of Brisbane. 10 News First reporter Kate Banville joins us from the exclusion zone on the edge of the scene. Kate, her neighbour was also shot dead in this ambush. What more do we know?
Lachlan, this was the edge of the exclusion zone until just moments ago when police moved further to be closer to the property. We saw 3 funeral cars speed off in the direction away from the property, just bringing to light the harrowing ordeal that happened at a property just metres from where we stand right now. It was supposed to be essentially a welfare check when 4 officers turned up at the request of New South Wales Police to check on a missing person. They didn't have any idea what they were stepping into. 2 police officers, a male and a female in their 20s.
So when you're seeing so when you're seeing people 6 confirmed dead, they are including the perpetrators in the body count. The 2 officers, the neighbor, and the 3 perpetrators.
20s were shot. Their weapons were then taken from them. While they lay on the ground, they were shot again. A male police officer also was shot. He managed to escape with just a graze. The fourth police officer, a female, she hid in bushes. You can only imagine the ordeal that she went through as the minutes turned into hours waiting for the Special Operations Police to arrive. When they were on scene, they got into a gunfight with these 4 suspects, 2 males and a female, who were killed after this gunfight went on for hours. We were here as the last bullet was shot at around 10:30 p.m. last night. We've stayed in position and we spoke to the police union, Ian Levers, on scene. This is what he had to say.
This was a pure execution. Our 2 colleagues we lost yesterday, they had no chance. It happened that quickly, and I will say they were executed by these remorseless, ruthless killers.
The neighbour that attended was prompted by a bushfire and was also shot dead, as we now know. This scene is now the site of a major investigation. The police commissioner saying that flags will fly at half-mast around the state today to honour these officers.
Very fitting indeed. Such a tragedy. Kate Banville, as you said, you've been there throughout the night.
So ultimately, that's the main pieces of news that we have on here. We're probably going to get a lot more as we go along. Here. But yeah, that's what we have right now. It's just, again, like I said in the beginning of this, they don't have anything on the weaponry or anything like that. So this is what we have so far. They're probably going to search a lot more into their background. The father was interviewed. The father of the 2 brothers was interviewed. He said that they cut off contact with him for like 2 decades, so he had no idea what was going on with them. We're probably going to get more insight into their beliefs. A lot of them said it was like a lot of anti-vax, QAnon, and standard sovereign citizen direct. This last thing I was going to show you, and this is something I just saw earlier, recently, was an update on the German Reichsbürgers. Apparently, there's some new updates onto that situation. If you didn't know, about a week ago, Germany arrested about 25 people in a plot to overthrow the German government. The Reichsbürgers, if you don't know who they are the German equivalent of sovereign citizens. Same thing. They don't believe the current government is legit. They don't have to follow their laws. And apparently, prosecutors are saying they plan to set up 280 armed units across Germany that would be tasked with arresting and executing people after a coup. Yeah. Prosecutors brief lawmakers about seizing a large number of NDAs by people alleged fraudsters that tried to recruit. Giant ass QAnon. They refuse to pay taxes or fines. Their houses are independent entities outside the authority of the Federal Republic of Germany, reject the German Constitution, and swamp German courts with lawsuits. Where have we heard that one before? They produce their own aspirational documents, such as passports and driver's licenses. So it's all the same shtick.
Joining us now is lawmaker Ralf Stegner, a member of the German Bundestag for Chancellor Olaf Scholz's Social Democrats. Welcome to DW, Mr. Stegner. We've just seen one of Germany's biggest anti-terror operations for decades. How worrying is the threat from these far-right extremists?
Well, I think it's pretty worrisome to see that so many people join together, have an armed wing, and try to overthrow the government. Yet, on the other hand, it shows that we are prepared, that we observe these things, and that the police and the legal authorities are on the place to prevent things like that from happening. And yesterday there was a very successful raid so that the group could be, we could end their existence.
So you say the government is prepared, but in the longer term, what will the government's response be to this threat from the extreme right?
Well, I think we have to talk about this more openly in public, that there are foes of democracy, especially in the right wing of our political spectrum, and that we have to observe that very closely, and that people should use their legal demonstration rights, but they should not join together with extremists. And on the other hand, I think it's necessary that we make a clear cut between democratic parties and those right-wing activities. That's also something the Conservative Party has to worry about, or has to be more careful about, drawing clear lines where the democratic spectrum
I'm not sure
ends.
how they were.
I just want to talk about something that you tweeted
I don't know
today.
the details of surrounding the raid,
You
Jessa.
wrote, the people belonging
or leading
to
up to the
extreme
raids.
right Reichsbürger movement have no place amongst Germany's public servants, such as the police, such as the armed forces. So how can the government enforce this?
Well,
members of the movement believe the deep state conspiracy theories that deny the existence of Germany's post-World War II Federal Republic and reject the authority of the German government. They believe the 1937 borders of the German Empire still exist. Oh, really?
First of all, we really have to be more careful.
Wait, so do they not recognize the free city of Danzig?
For whom we bring into public offices. For instance, who are the people that are able to join the army, who are people that are on courts, and we have to find out. And if there's somebody who says, I'm a member of the Reichsbürger, for instance, or of the right-wing AfD party, which is a right-wing extremist party in the Bundestag, that should not be comparable with the public office. And
yeah, Raymond's right. How are they going to restore the 1937 borders without also trying to take out Kaliningrad? Yeah, good luck with that. You know, Russia's currently in some shit, but Kaliningrad is extremely militarized.
We have to prevent those people to be able to join those public offices. Because otherwise it can become very dangerous if they have influence enough to become a threat to our democracy.
OK, so obviously this will mean much, much closer monitoring than obviously is happening at the moment. I mean, I presume that would mean monitoring extremist views online, on social media. I mean, is enough of that happening?
Well, I don't think there's enough happening yet, but it's also a task for our intelligence services to have a close view.
I mean, I don't know if I would say that they are Nazi offshoots. There's evidence of anti-Semitic views, but it doesn't seem like they're abject Nazis. Far right, yes. Anti-Semitic, yes. I don't know if they are, you know, all about like restoring the Third Reich itself. But I could just be, you know, splitting hairs. Who knows? There might be.
On what's happening there. As you might know, they already observe the activities of the Alternative for Germany. And one of the findings yesterday was that there were close links between the Reichsbürger scene and the AfD, which always claims to be a democratic party, but it's not. And I think our democracy really has to be very careful that we don't miss anything on that side, and we tolerate the intolerance.
German Member of Parliament Ralf Stegner from the Social Democrats. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us today.
Thank you.
I believe the second I believe that the Second Reich is the 1879, right? Is that the Second Reich? Under Bismarck, or was it Wilhelm? I can't remember. It's the 18th. It was the one after they beat the French. And they created the German Empire there. That's what I thought too, redacted, that the First Reich was the Holy Roman Empire. Second Reich was the 1871, that's what it was, by Bismarck. And then the third was, everybody ought to know what the Third Reich is at this point. So who was it? Was it Tony? Was it Tony Tannick? Tom. Tony Stank. Oh. I don't see I don't even see his post here. Tom Tanuki Garrett. You said it was Garrett Drain, right? Not Nathaniel.
So you will probably have seen by now that there was a shooting yesterday in northern Queensland in which 2 police officers and several members of the public, some of whom were the shooters apparently, and one of whom was just a neighbour, were killed. After having looked at one of the shooters' online trials today, it became apparent to me that this person was, if not a sovereign citizen, labels are a bit hard to apply here, then definitely pilled in Freeman style or SovCits adjacent stuff, along with a hodgepodge of other conspiracy stuff. So I posted that to Twitter. So I thought I'd run through that and then kind of run through some of my previous work on SovCits, because I've done a lot of it this year. And one of the reasons I did so much of it this year was because it seemed to me that SovCits, just as they did in the US, were going to eventually start turning bloody. Seems like that's what's happened here. Police shot dead 3 people after an ambush at a remote property. This is in the north of Queensland. 2 men and 1 woman were fatally shot. Gareth Train that I pretty quickly found a lot of stuff related to conspiracist material. Queensland or Cairns-based cooker site. This is an article, November the 29th, 2021, a warning that counter gangs, whatever the fuck that means, are active among freedom seekers. And it's written by... Gareth Train. Notice it mentions Ricardo Bosi and Davo Neegs at the start of it. What he's doing is he's slagging off conspiracist influences. Gareth gets into stuff that, and I've found a series of other comments from him. They're all very similar. How did we get here? Intelligence operation after intelligence operation, false flag after false flag, instilling fear into a retarded populace distracted by sports and...
Okay, so Jesus. Intelligence operation after intelligence operation, false flag after false flag, instilling fear in retarded populace distracted by sports and beer to install totalitarian corporate Jesuit government muppets. Oh yeah, by the way, sovereign citizens, in addition to having a not so insignificant anti-Semitic bent, they have a serious hate boner for Catholics. They really do not like Catholics at all. You have been taught to your duty as a spy to gather all statistics, facts, and information in your power from every source to increase your family circle of Protestants and heretics of every class. Do service around, yeah.
To install totalitarian Jesuit government muppets. Okay, paranoia about a Jesuit world order, or the Jesuits as being the people who run the NWO, that is very old school conspiracist material. The old warhorse cookers that far predate the pandemic tend to be like this. And as it became clear to me over time, this is definitely what Gareth Train is. He's an old school cooker, long before the word was ever applied to conspiracists, long before the pandemic. What he gets into here, as he does in many of his other comments, is commentary about how ASIO are run by Freemasons and Jesuits. He talks about the old good boy Masonic network here, about how Australians are stupid and they haven't woken up. Talks about vaccines here. And he says it's unlawful to name or identify an active Jesuit ASIO agent and will result in your disappearance into the bowels of the corrupt Jesuit judicial system, institutionalised as a number without a voice. Therefore, I suggest you look closer at the protest organisers, and they're obviously, given the heading, he's referring to people like Ricardo Bossi and David Needs, and those leading the opposition before you were led straight off a cliff and you used as part of another false flag. So Gareth believes that everything is false flag. He doesn't like the figureheads of the conspiracy movement, which is pretty common among them. You know, they're a paranoid lot anyway. You know, you can find a lot of people who, particularly the older school conspiracists, who became mistrustful, as they should have, of the sudden proliferation of schmick new figureheads that led to the pandemic. But, you know, his reason for doing so is that he thinks they're all controlled by the Jesuits. Funny story, actually. Ricardo Bossi has just posted.
Yeah, if you guys didn't, if you guys didn't know, I mean, that has actually been a thing. Where a lot, if you guys know Ernie, the mountain man, I mean, he described, described them as the Roman cult. You know, him and a lot of others like make the one offshoot theory is that they think that the United States is literally property of the Pope. So there's actually a very large anti-Catholic vibe that's in a lot of these SovCits circles, in addition to good old-fashioned anti-Semitism.
Australia One Telegram channel that he thinks this is a contrived load of watch him all closely, because it's the done conspiracist low energy thing to call everything a false flag when it involves a bit of violence, particularly violence that might tangentially make you look bad. The reason that's funny is because Gareth Train evidently also thought that Ricardo Bossi was a false flag. So it's like everyone thinks everyone's a false fucking flag. That's actually just pretty par for the course for conspiracist people, but I thought that was interesting. A lot of comments by Gareth online. Here he says the term conspiracy theory is a construct of the Jesuit order cabal, aka the CIA. Can we comment?
Yeah, apparently the CIA is a Jesuit offshoot.
I did a lot of Mike Holt's website. If you don't know who Mike Holt is, you probably, if you've seen all my SovCits videos, you may recall him at the very least. An old school Freeman / SovCit warhorse, obsessed with common law, which is a basic tenet of SovCit Freeman rhetoric. And here he is having a chat. So a lot of comments under Mike Holt's common law website. Here he's talking about COVID detainment camps. He's getting a little bit stroppy that Mike Holt said to him that it's good to see you starting to do your own research. He's been aware of CCP troops in Canada for the past 20 years. This is an important thing in the sense that he's quite on.
I've been aware of CCP troops in Canada, like Chinese Communist Party troops. The past 20 years from sources in Canada, the USA, to control the resources. The only what?
Honestly, he talks about 20 years. This is
Chinese troops are at the border to stop U.S. citizens and U.S. military entering Canada.
an old school conspiracist. And he didn't just jump on board like most of the cookers that we've looked at there with, you know, your sort of Ricardo Bossi, Dave O'Neill's types who didn't give a shit about politics much, well, particularly in the case of a lot of the influencers like Dave O'Neill's. You know, only when the pandemic happened. I mean, he's been a cooker for a long time is what I'm saying. He talks about Chinese troops having invaded many different countries in the West, classic conspiracist sort of idea at the moment. He says, as I previously stated, been there and done the research in the 90s. Nobody was interested then, and now the plans are coming true. Not many are interested now. But it seems like nothing has changed much in the past 25 years. Some people like to hear themselves talk. Some people want the stage. Some want the power. Some create websites. And I think he's having a sly little dig there at Mike Holt. And others write books. Me, I just tell people who want to listen what's going on. Good luck, Mike. Yeah, so he got a bit of a chip on his shoulder from what I could see about new school conspiracist influences, even though Mike's been around for fucking ages. He's not new school at all. You know, he is precious about the fact that he's been an old school awake person. The CIA, aka Jesuit cabal, invented the web to infiltrate, manipulate, and control. He is very big on the idea that the Jesuit-controlled ASIO and CIA are actually behaviour manipulating everyone, even mind controlling them. Here in the context of an article, conspiracist article, about 5G, EMF waves and all that sort of thing, you know, altering your DNA, I think the article was about, on a conspiracy side. I think Top News, there's quite a bit of conversation by him under that, as well as Mike Holt's Common Law website. He's talking about the effects of EMF. He says, poor memory, concentration, headaches. Another deliberate effect, that is of, you know, 5G style EMF waves, not included in the list, is the voice of Allah, coded voice messages embedded in EMF waves. Long story short, he's really, really into mind control, as I said earlier. He really, really believes that the government is mind controlling citizens. Look, I've seen other comments from him bandied about. There's quite a few online. I won't go through them all. In which he was talking about, you know, building an ark, which in reality he's making a fucking enclave on his country property, which SovCits want to do. You may or may not be aware. But just before we move on, here's a line from him that I think is really prescient, you know, and it sort of speaks to the anti-authority paranoia, but also to the latent intent to strike back if anyone comes to, you know, pay a visit. Their murder and cover-up has never stopped, and neither has the false flags. If you're a conservative, anti-vax, freedom lover, protester, common law, which again, you know, I take as code for SovCit, you know, it's, well, I mean, yeah, a more apt description, free man or common law, conspiracy talker, alternative news, independent critical thinker, truther, Christian, patriot, etc., etc. Expect a visit from these hammers. They are here to kill, maim, and take you to re-education school. Obviously doesn't bode well for anyone coming to knock on these people's door. So what we know about Nathaniel is that he went off the grid at some point after he lost his job, and presumably when he was communicating with Mark Latham in late 2021. He stayed in touch with his family, but he wasn't coming to see them per se. My assumption is at around that point he went to Gareth's house. I don't know, I'm on the outside looking in, but that seems the case to me. In October, however, we went completely off the grid, stopped communicating with them. On December the 4th, they filed a missing police report. and it only took them a handful of days to go to the property and for this shootout to happen. So I've actually had a really big year with SovCits. SovCits themselves have had a big year. You know, that's not for no reason that I would cover them so much. I could sense that they were going to start, you know, unveiling the pointy end in a US-style way, because, you know, conspiracy was supercharged by the pandemic. Beginning of the year, I did a bit of part 2-hour documentary looking at this Australian SovCit ideology. You know, you can't do that without sketching out where it comes from, which is, you know, the US. But I looked into it. I talked to experts. I suppose most notably in this context, I spoke to Rob Sudi, who runs the website Freeman Delusion. We talked a bit how hard it is. You know, I at least alluded at the start that it's a little bit hard to pin a label on this person, Gareth Train, because you know, you can't just say SovCit. I mean,
well, I agree with him. I agree with him in that sense that we don't know fully what's going on here. There's evidence there that's leaning towards it, that's suggesting it, that this guy went really deep down the rabbit hole. So we're probably going to get more information later on. But overall, it's definitely a tragic situation. You don't know when these kinds of things are going to happen next. It's just a reminder of how dangerous these people can be if they are true believers and they have the willingness to use violence to enforce their beliefs. So this is where I'm going to call it here. I just wanted to bring attention to it. It's still a fresh story. It's something that's probably going to have a lot more updates on it later on. But it's just another reminder of what this ideology is capable of. But yeah, but I want to thank you guys for coming in to watch. I appreciate it. It's kind of a impromptu, but I just wanted to get the word out. And kind of spread this further, because, you know, it's always going to be the concern that it's going to be a novelty thing. I think the thing is that people are like looking at the novelty of this being a shooting in Australia, not so much that the perpetrators may belong to an ideology that, while we poke fun and laugh at the silliness at a traffic stop or at a court hearing, they are also can be very dangerous to law enforcement and public servants around. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope to see you guys again probably on Friday. But yeah, take care of yourselves and have a good one. I'll see ya.